to the media where they've lost that idea of common sense thinking. And so nowadays, the most important thing I feel like for any of us to do is to think, okay, is the cause I'm fighting for, is it a controversial issue? Or is it actually non-controversial, but it's an issue that has become controversial from the critics? And we cannot ever pander to the critics, and we have to keep pursuing a worthy cause. Because what we're fighting for is worthy. America is the greatest country in the world.
Conservatives all get all on Pasevi. Thank you for the 100 gifted subs. What the hell is going on, man? What the heliante is late in the night? Is 9 p.m. here? Is 6 p.m. in Los Angeles. And we got people, we got big Oilers in the building, busting down the doors. New Oilers, new names no one's ever heard before. Why are we watching Ma Pack? I don't even know what that means. Conservatives get all bent, out of shape about an illegal alien drywaller landscaper freeloading off Americans. Meanwhile, a Nepo baby and his expat entourage can show up at CPAC and demand American kids go die halfway around the world to put him in power. Oh, Reza Pahlavi. Wow, that was the... I guess the entirety of CPAC was geared towards the sexual dynamo, Reza Pahlavi. Indiana Spud, thank you for 10 gifted.
This wide range of very, very eclectic interests, music, Broadway shows, pro wrestling, football, every sport, golf, and business and Wall Street. He knows how everybody made their money and what deals they made. And he tells stories all the time about it. It's just one after the other. And one time during the campaign, I was on the airplane with him, and we were sitting across the table from each other, eating McDonald's, drinking Diet Coke. And we started talking about Syria, and he got a placemat, and he turned it on its back, and then he took a Sharpie, and he drew a perfect map of the Mideast. And then he put the troop strength of every country on every border on that map. And it just, it challenged a lot of the assumptions that I had been told about him. He has, he has this extraordinary depth of knowledge about what's happening in each one of the agencies, my agency and the others. And, and then he has an instinct for making good choices.
Yes. Well, I have to say that...
And I would say this. I think my uncle, John Kennedy, understood the uses of power.
What the hell? Another 50 gifted subs by Emma Ann. Hassan, come to Hawaii, please. Gifted 20 gifted subs.
Better than any president who's preceded him. I think Donald Trump understands the use of power better than probably any president that we've had.
How does one get built in auto-tune? I think he got like Hep C in the throat or something. I don't know exactly how he got that throat, but he is a throat goat. A moral direction like you, Ro, kind of embracing someone who says America's Zionists and neo-Nazis. A new moral direction is opposing the fuel embargo that's causing blackouts and hunger in Cuba. Saying the truth about the genocide in Gaza, not sending military weapons to kill civilians to Israel, opposing Iran war. Americans are deeply good and want us to be for human rights. All these capitalists gifting a socialist millions of subs. What the hell? Mao Zedong grandma.
Experience. And the thing is that they called that Hillary's war. She was the Secretary of State at the time under Barack Obama, but she's really the one who championed that. And I believe Obama wrote in his book that he was 50-50 and that Hillary really pushed him to that. And he said his big regret was that he didn't think about what came next after Gaddafi, because somehow we haven't learned that lesson yet. Like after Iraq, you'd never thought of that.
But thank God Trump's figured it out.
Oh yeah, Trump's figured it out. We'll go in this drastic new direction of getting the 7th war that they wanted.
Dave. Jesus Christ. Did you see that one, I don't know what military expert was on television, who said something about I'm a fan of boots on the ground, like Rome. Like, hey, Rome didn't have nuclear weapons and drones. Mm-hmm. Rome didn't have drones that hunt you.
Yeah.
Like, what are you talking about, boots on the ground? Should we fight with swords? Should we get everybody to fight with swords? Is that what you're saying? you saying?
Well, also, like, what even is the plan with boots on the ground? Like, what are you talking about here? You're gonna take an island. It goes, okay, well then you're gonna be a target. You're gonna be target practice as long as the Iranian regime is still standing. And if you're talking about militarily occupying the country, like we did with Iraq or Afghanistan or something like that, this is a huge country with 92 million people. How many soldiers do you think you need to occupy that country?
Yeah.
At least 500,000, and probably you can't do it with that. So what are you talking about here? And so you're saying, what are we going to start a draft for the least popular war going in American history?
Yeah.
Because I don't think that's happening.
Yeah, this is maybe slightly more popular than Vietnam.
Going in, it's less. I'm sure Vietnam by the end was very, very unpopular.
Well, Vietnam going in didn't make any sense, did it? There was, I guess, the Gulf of Tonkin incident. Most people in America were like, why are we doing this? What's going on? You're drafting people to go to Vietnam? We're fighting communism in Vietnam?
Yeah.
What?
Well, they called it Vietnam syndrome that the American people had, which is that we didn't want to fight a war again after that. That's from their perspective, that's a syndrome. It's really something. They think, by the way, Ben Shapiro used this same line he said, Trump finally broke Iraq war syndrome. Because they think, see, from Ben Shapiro's perspective, the illness is after you lie the American people into a war and slaughter 1 million people. The illness isn't that. You might look at that as the bad part, but the bad part is that these annoying Americans have this tendency to not want to do that again after that. But he claims Trump has broken Iraq war syndrome. Of course, there's really no evidence with support of the American people that has changed at all. And, the George H.W. Bush was said to have defeated Vietnam war syndrome in Panama and in Iraq, because they were relatively easy, right? Bloodless on the American side, or very, very limited, injuries and deaths, and they, they weren't like quagmires that went on forever or whatever. But of course, after the Persian Gulf War in '92, we went on to be bombing Iraq for ever since, essentially, for 30 straight years after that.
This guy's sucker now. I'm getting mixed vibes. I mean, he's a libertarian, but he's like anti-war. So this is an unbelievably racist thing to say. I'm sorry. There is no other way to read this. What an unbelievably racist thing to do. It's insane. I mean, I guess we'll start there. There's a Politico article that turned into an article that was just Adam Wren. Adam Wren wrote the initial article about me stumping with Abdul El Sayed. Adam Wren then basically took my super long response to him and turned it into an article in and of itself. The article is titled, Why Some Democrats Want to Shut Off Hassan Piker's Megaphone. The popular streamer's rise as Democratic influencer coincides with the party's long search for a path out of the wilderness. Hassan Piker speaks to the media at election night watch party for Zohran Mamdani's campaign in Brooklyn, New York. Hassan Piker's new role as a midterm surrogate and potential influence on the 2028 presidential race is driving a wedge in the Democratic Party. After Politico reported that Piker, the far-left political streamer with millions of followers, will stump in Michigan with Senate candidate Abdul El Sayed next month, his history of divisive comments have launched an avalanche of criticisms from Republicans and Democrats. Two of El Sayed's opponents, State Senator Mallory McMorrow and Representative Haley Stevens, lambasted El Sayed, with Stevens telling Jewish Insider, someone who's campaigning with someone like that is not going to win in Michigan, and McMorrow saying Piker says extremely offensive things in order to generate clicks and views and followers, which is not entirely different from somebody like Nick Fuentes, comparing him to the anti-Semite nationalist influencer. Piker's rise as Democratic influencer and surrogate coincides with the party's long search for a path out of the wilderness, particularly in recapturing young men. Piker is scheduled to appear alongside a live stream Choose Your Fighter rally organized by Progressive Victory at 6:30 p.m. Saturday by Representative Ro Khanna is among the list of attendees. Maine Democratic Senate candidate Graham Plattner was originally billed as a participant, but he pulled out of the event. A person familiar told Plattner's planned appearance was a miscommunication. And on Sunday, Piker will rally with Senator Bernie Sanders at a Tax the Rich rally. The question over Piker's prominence also comes as both the Republican and Democratic parties ask fundamental questions about how big their tents should be. But it's out of power Democrats who face the higher short-term stakes. But it is the out-of-power Democrats who face the higher short-term stakes. In an interview with Politico, Piker downplayed accusations that have been leveled against them, like the center-left think tank Third Way, whose leaders wrote a Wall Street Journal op-ed that Piker had a history of anti-American, anti-women, anti-Western, anti-Semitic comments. Piker said Third Way was losing their institutional relevance. He also said he's merely channeling, not changing the attitudes of the Democratic base. I'm a megaphone, right? Piker told Politico. There are lots of Barbs and Debras out here and out there in Minneapolis, for example. I said Barbaras, but they wrote Barbs. I don't know why. For example, that have never encountered me, and yet they share that frustration with the failures of establishment liberalism all the same. Piker said those type of voters view the Democrats as ineffective, inept. It's not because they tune into the Hassan broadcast every day, he said, referencing his Twitch channel. They arrive at that conclusion because the Democrats lost to Trump twice with the same principle that you got to pivot to the mythical moderate center. This isn't Piker's first rodeo. He live-streamed an interview last year with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Sanders before the duos fighting oligarchy rallies. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani also sat for an interview with Piker last year. But Piker's increasing coziness with prominent Democrats also comes as some in the party argue he poses a problem for them. Piker is close to, but not over the Nick Fuentes line, where going on his show itself is indefensible. Third Way co-founder Matt Bennett, who's been sounding the alarm about the Democrats' affiliation with Piker, told Politico. Bennett added that Democrats take on all his baggage if they don't overtly reject him, which he said is dangerous because it empowers the right and gives them an incredibly powerful tool to hit Democrats with. That's very bad. But some Democrats, I mean, this is literally, I didn't think I'd be at the epicenter of this conversation, but this conversation is not about me at all. You know what I mean? Like, it might come across as a conversation that's about me, but it's not about me. This conversation is about where the Democratic Party should be heading. Will they be responsive to the needs of the base? Will they be responsive to the overwhelming demands, totally just demands, totally moral demands coming from, large majorities of the base of the party? Or will they continue with establishment neoliberalism, right? Because there is no Jeremy Corbyn style figure as it stands currently in the American left flank of the Democratic Party, they have positioned me as the fixture point, right? They have decided that I am the placeholder for a Jeremy Corbyn style figure that they can just like actively undermine with the same exact style of smears. But the difference now is when the anti-Semitism smears against Jeremy Corbyn were very effective in purging the left flank of the Labor and turning it into the Keir Starmer, very right-wing Labor Party that it currently is, that's collapsing the party in and of itself, right? When they did that, it was a very different media environment, okay? When they did that, it was an entirely different media environment. It was an entirely different political environment. The issue of Israel was nowhere near as salient as it is now. And also the issue of Israel was nowhere near as favorable to our side as it is now, right? So what they are trying to do is basically cut away at me being the vessel, the vehicle for left flank politics in the Democratic Party. I have made it I've made it known. It's not like I hide my perspective. I'm like, I want the leftmost persons to be elected in every single seat, right? I'm very open about it. I'm very honest about it. And I think that's what is so terrifying for a lot of these guys, right? I want socialists. I want a million Zorans all around the country, okay? I want to elect 1,000 Zorans. Let 1,000 Zorans bloom. Okay? And that is terrifying for a lot of these people. And it's not terrifying because these people will lose. It's terrifying because they'll win. Do you understand? That's the problem. They don't want the Democratic Party to have a large share of the power sharing agreement coming from people like Zohran Mamdani, who will be objectively more popular. And then the rest of the Democrats will have to caucus alongside people like that. And then the rest of the Democrats that want to maintain their positions of power will have to reconsider their stances. They will have to lean into the left flank attitudes, the left flank push. And they will have to genuinely fight for those sorts of things. That's my goal. I've never hidden that. And I think we have an opportunity for it because this is the time, right? This is an opportunity unlike ever. An opportunity that we have that we've never had before. My take on the Hun stuff: Dem politicians have long been happy to tout themselves. Is this? Dem politicians have long been happy to tout themselves, talking to controversial far-right fascists to flaunt their left-punching credentials, and they've concurrently tried to starve all left-leaning media of attention. So the whole fake controversy here just spotlights the deeper asymmetry. And to be clear, I'm not equating Hassan with the far right, nor am I weighing in on all of his views, statements, declarations. I'm making a larger, indisputable point. As the country is crushed by very real problems here in the real world, there's a never forget we're the real story, not them vibe and media folk trying to make politicians' views about other media folk the main focus of attention. Watch the old film Broadcast News. It's all about this annoying dynamic. That's precisely what it is. It's like this is a larger conversation about where the party's future should be going, but it's being had over someone like myself. I'm at the center of it, but I'm just a placeholder, right? I'm simply a placeholder here. I'm not the actual story. The actual story here is where the Democrats go, where the Democrats go from now, where the Democrats grow from here. Should the Democratic Party be a centrist party, a center right party? Should the Democrat actually be a leftist party, an actual truly leftist party, an actual progressive party? But some Democrats like Khanna argue that the party needs to assemble a broad coalition that must include engaging with Israel critics like Hassan Piker, as PodSafe hosts have done and many progressive candidates here have done. Khanna told Politico, of course, I disagree strongly with some of his statements and point that out, but canceling people or shaming people like Hassan Piker, Sean Ryan, or Theo Vaughn is not the answer. The debate over Piker's place within the party is set to play out across the 2028 field, too. Now they're saying you can't drive a wedge because 55% of self-identifying Democrats don't even know he exists. It's almost like you agree with us that it's bizarre and pointless for politicians to waste time smearing and denouncing him. Yes, exactly. Thank you. And that's precisely the reason why they're doing it, because 55% of self-identifying Democrats don't know who I am. The ones that do love me, right? And the ones that do that don't like me, they're incredibly marginal, right? They're not like self-identifying Democrats who know who I am as like a progressive guy at the Young Turks, or a guy who is like an anti-Zionist, all the, like those, not just you guys, but just like the broader Democrats, the people that come up to me when I go out to these rallies and stuff, like those people are far, far larger in numbers than the people who are like, I'm a self-identifying Democrat and I am. It's like, those are like Elizabeth Warren staffers. You know what I mean? There's a handful of them. There's a handful of them. They're not very significant. They don't represent a significant, forceful part of the base. They do have institutional relevance because they think I'm like up their jobs, right? Because their job is to just like hold on to power, right, to the best of their ability. And the most effective machine thus far has been to glaze billionaires and their interests and place profits over the interests of the people and be feckless and ineffective at fighting back against the Republican Party, fighting back against fascism, right? But they don't have the numbers. If they did, they would be honest when they run for office, right? They would say, hey, what's up? I'm Mallory McMorrow, and I am basically just an empty vessel for whatever corporate interests that I can massage into my focus-tested messaging, and that's what I'm here to do, right? I don't have any real values. Maybe I have some values here and there that I will represent, but overall, like my positions are very changeable. I'm very malleable, and I'm very susceptible to corporate influence. That's what they would do. Do you think that's a solid way to campaign? Do you think you would win any votes doing that? Of course not. That's my point, right? These guys can't be honest about it. That's part of the reason why a lot of people, understandably, are frustrated with the way politics operates, and even the most normie. Even the biggest normies will always say the classic thing, oh, I can't trust any politicians. It's like, yeah, you can't, because we haven't really had a great string of earnest politicians that communicate their worldview openly, without fear. Politico surveyed 14 potential 2028 Democratic presidential candidates asking whether they would appear on a live stream with Piker if invited. Only 3 definitively said they would. Senators Cory Booker, Ruben Gallego, and Elisa Slotkin all said they wouldn't go on Piker's stream through spokespeople. Mr. Piker's terrible comments about Jewish people, 9/11, and other areas aren't the kinds of conversation Cory participates in, and he will not be joining him on a stream, an aide to Booker told Politico. I think we all know the real reason why Cory Booker wouldn't do that. But it doesn't really matter because he's not winning anything anyway. Cory Booker, a person, like, Like, think about this. Think about this. Cory Booker has literally been photographed next to Benjamin Netanyahu last year, okay? Like, we're talking about a guy who has no problem hanging out with straight up war criminals, right? But I'm a bridge too far? Like, get out of here. It's very obvious, okay? It's very obvious. You know where your bread is buttered. But they can't say that. Again, it goes back to politicians can't be honest. Right? Politicians can't be honest. Yeah, that's I don't think he's like still homies with Rabbi Shmuley, but he used to be. But that's what I mean. If you want to hear, like, this is like, you read this statement, right? And then you put your honesty glasses on. If you read the statement at face value, Mr. Parker's terrible comments about Jewish people and 9/11 other areas aren't the kinds of conversation Cory participates in. You put the glasses on and it's like, I don't want to talk to someone who's going to question me from my left flank and expose my immorality, because I, first and foremost, will always defend the state of Israel rather than my own constituents. That's what it is. You put the glasses on and you see the truth behind the statement. This is the fake conversation that are set on the boundaries that they can have this conversation on. The real conversation is, yeah, I don't want to do that because it's going to make me look incredibly immoral and make me look really bad. I obviously don't have an issue aligning with, horrible monsters like Yoav Gallant. Like, this is the guy who's like, I don't want to talk to Hassan. Like, okay, well, I don't want to talk to you either. That's not true. I'll talk to anyone. I don't really care. But it's pretty funny to me that, like, these are the guys who are like, remember when libs demanded you applaud Booker for his 25-hour speech that accomplished nothing? I do remember that. The other person was Gallego, which, again, in my opinion, is another one of those guys that's like, that famously was podcaster presses Booker on Netanyahu. What the actual yeah, Jennifer Welsh did cook him. This is insane. Yeah, I know. It's pretty funny. Piker isn't inviting these people onto his stream. They're coming to him for his audience. It's true. Exactly. It's exactly what it is. But it's ironic that they're having these conversations so far out from 2028 that they literally are positioning me as like a kingmaker for no reason. But I guess it's healthy to have these sorts of conversations because, like, inevitably we're going to land somewhere, right? Either the Democrats are going to be like, if you go on Hassan's stream, we will shut off, even in the general, we will not fund your race against a Republican, even if you would be a reliable vote against Republicans, right? If you're a left flank candidate, we're just not funding you. It's over. You're done. You're not a part of the coalition. You're not a part of the caucus. You're out on your own. Like, they might do that. They might just like destroy the party in its entirety, specifically because they want to control the flows of information within the party, right? Control like the power that they have over the party, right? You'll never guess who's back. Oh my God, my goat. I mean, this is the moment. When the world needed him the most, he vanished, and I'm glad that didn't you openly say you don't want to be the Joe Rogan to the left? I did, but it doesn't matter, right? Like, they never really listened to me. Not only did I say I don't want to be the Joe Rogan to the left, I also said you can't actually podcast your way out of the problems of the party, ironically enough, right? So who would appear on Piker's stream? Let's look at who would. Ro Khanna, California Governor Newsom, and Rahm Emanuel. That's really funny. I love that. Rahm Emanuel said he would come on the broadcast. That's hilarious to me. I don't know where that came from. He has never reached out to come on the broadcast, but I guess he's doing the rounds. Big Rahm. Big Rami Rahm. Yeah. It's not on the agenda right now, but the governor has never shied away from debating anyone anywhere, Newsom spokesperson Izzy Garden told Politico. Said an Emanuel spokesperson, Rahm is always willing to have difficult conversations with anyone about the future of the country and to tell people he disagrees with why they are wrong. Aides to Pennsylvania Governor Josh Shapiro and Kentucky Governor Andy Bashar declined to comment. I've literally talked to Andy Bashar personally, by the way, when I was at the Pod Johns conference in Washington, D.C. I mean, he did not know who I was back then, but I suspect that given what he has said so far about Israel, when someone was asking him, when CNN was asking him about Israel being a litmus test, I don't know if he'd come on or not. It doesn't really matter. Aides the former president, former VP Kamala Harris, Transportation Secretary Pete Buttigieg, Mark Kelly, Maryland Governor Wes Moore, J.B. Pritzker, Illinois Governor, did not respond. Asked about some of his controversial past comments, Piker didn't retract any of them. Asked if he had ever misspoken. Misspoken? No. Taken out of context? Absolutely. He did point to one particular quote about his October 7th Hamas attack on Israel, which he noted often comes up when he's criticized. One of the quotes that they love floating around is the October 7th quote where I said, like, it's happening, like, conversation around sexual violence taking place on October 7th doesn't change the dynamic for me. And I was talking about genocide. I was like, this doesn't justify genocide at all, Piker said. As for the quotes he catches heat for, no, I stand by them, Piker said. So who does Piker like 2028? For 2028, he's got a short list. I said Georgia Senator John Ossoff will be a dark horse pick depending on how he presents himself, if he has ambitions for higher office. I do love UAW President Sean Fain personally. I like an outsider pick. I like Ro Khanna. I like AOC. I actually like Chris Van Hollen quite a bit as well, even. In the New Yorker article, you said Buttigieg's people reached out to you and you said no. Yeah, that was supposed to be a private conversation that I was having in front of a New Yorker reporter, which is precisely the reason why it was reported in the New Yorker. Sometimes I like to keep things private, okay? And the criticism cuts both ways. At the end of the day, of course, I have disagreements with every single one of these candidates, Piker said. No candidate is perfect. An advisor to one potential 2028 candidate granted anonymity to appraise Piker's influence told Politico they expect Piker to be a gatekeeper in the primary. But Piker isn't sure how much sway he'll hold. Who knows how things change, he said. I mean, this is a very dynamic environment. So yeah, that's the article from Politico. It has reached, because it's like so perfectly nuclear. It's basically like an atom bomb for Twitter discourse. And that's precisely the reason why there is a lot of discourse on the Twitter discourse machine. Threading some thoughtful reaction to my Hassan Piker item here, Adam Wren reports, Matt Duss, Hassan isn't driving a wedge into the party. The failed, repeatedly discredited, yet unfortunately still entrenched corporate wing of the party is. They fear the left's growing power and see Hassan as a way to make us argue amongst ourselves. We shouldn't fall for it. Crystal Ball says, correct. And the current AstroTurf Hassan freakout is precisely because dem elites know they can no longer control the base. Leaving your bullshit attempt to weaponize an out-of-context quote aside, what progressives fear is the Democrats will be connected to pro-corporate, anti-worker, neoliberal idiocy that has already helped the MAGA right win repeatedly. Matt Bennett, oh, what was the context? Like, he's just, like, this kind of politics doesn't work anymore. This kind of, like, hysterical. They did this to Bernie in 2016, and it failed, right? Or rather, it succeeded in 2016, but it led to the failure of the party. You know what I mean? So it's very stupid that these guys try to do it over and over again. This like silly, hysterical, like, oh, but what about this? It's like, dog, do you see the current media landscape that we're existing under? Okay. Donald Trump can go on Theo Vaughn's show where Theo Vaughn talks about doing cocaine, and Donald Trump is sincerely asking Theo Vaughn how cocaine makes Theo Vaughn feel. And like, that's a real humanizing moment for Donald Trump. You guys are literally operating on La La Land. And the real reasons why you want to do this, the real reasons aren't because you're, whoa, what the hell? A little baby F there. That was weird. The real reasons why you're saying all this stuff is not because, you know, you're genuinely worried that this is going to actually hurt the viability, the electoral viability of a candidate. Because if you actually saw me as an ally, right, as someone who's ideologically aligned with you, you would just turn around and say the appropriate thing, which is, what the f- are you talking about? The goddamn president is Donald Trump. He is a psychopath and lies all the time and actually says infinitely more unhinged things that you're claiming Hassan Piker is saying. Live in the real world, please. Like, this is a person that's being disparaged because you just don't agree with him, but you don't actually want to have the conversation on those boundaries, because those, if you were to have the conversation on those boundaries, most people would be like, well, I agree with the guy that you're calling controversial, as a matter of fact. That's it. That's it. That's the reality. That's the reality of the matter. That's actually what's going on currently. And they can't say that. They can't do that because this is an ideological battle. Okay. Yeah. Will Staken had a good take on this. He's the senior Washington reporter for ABC. He said, getting flashbacks from 2019 when Bernie Sanders went on Joe Rogan, faced similar intense backlash, and basically Dems lost an entire podcast / comedy audience to Trump and MAGA. Yeah, that's exactly what's going on. I mean, just through the nose, Booker, Slotkin, and Gallego accepted a collective 10 million plus from AIPAC and other Israeli lobby groups. So is it a Hassan problem, or a Hassan might ask me questions that I am donor bound to answer a certain way problem? But there's more. Rotimi Adeoye, who's a New York Times contributor, says, honestly, I hate talking about influencer palace intrigue, but I think the Dems who would not go on Hassan but would go on Rogan are making a weird argument because both have said things that any id Paul progressive would consider bad, and yet Rogan is good and Hassan is bad. I guess the argument that Hassan is worse is that he's further left and more confrontational, but that's a strategic choice, not a moral one. It's better just to be honest about that than doing the whole, this is a moral stand I must take. Also, if the goal is reaching audiences that don't already agree with you, both Rogan and Hassan have massive platforms of young men who aren't watching cable news. You either want those voters or you don't. You can create someone, but yeah, everyone will see that it's fake. To be honest, ideally, I'd rather everyone just stop treating these online celebrities as deciding factors in a campaign when things like candidate quality, electoral fundamentals, and actually meeting voters where they are, determine election results. This influencer shit is Bush League. I totally agree with Rotimi on this. I said, I think it's insane to place my values and consistent left advocacy anywhere near Rogan's libertarian adjacent MAGA politics. It's clear that they don't want to be challenged by their left flank, especially on Israel or Medicare for all, two issues I'd absolutely raise. To be clear, I'm not comparing your politics to Rogan's. They're obviously different. The comparison is about the audience. Both your platforms reach young men who aren't watching cable news, and the Democrats need a consistent standard for showing up where those voters are. And the reason why I said that to him was because he replied to someone where he was like, well, you know, Rogan and Hassan have said like equally crazy things that could be perceived as anti-Semitic or whatever. And it's like, I don't think that's the same. Like one, you could actually absolutely point to the anti-Semitism of the other. You can't, right? Has the stream started yet? Yes, the stream is live. Can you not see it? What's going on? Is your platform mostly young men though? Yes. It's so funny that a lot of people don't realize that, yes, my audience is still very much primarily under 35 white guys. We do the demographics year over year. I'm a lady. Yeah, I mean, it's a very large platform, and only a small chunk of people that are in the broader platform that watch me will, write in the chat, obviously. Yeah. The big tent, Dem should go on Rogan crowd, is a surprisingly cramped tent when it's a couple brown guys outside. Yeah. I think a lot of people are saying, I don't personally like his politics, partially because I refuse to understand what he's talking about, or partially because they're saying, like, I do understand what he's talking about, and I don't want to have that conversation at all because it's not one that favors me. So I want to nip this in the bud, right? That's what a lot of people are saying. They're like, I don't like him. I don't like his politics. I don't want to have a national conversation about like what the Democratic Party would look like if they were to lean into his politics. What else people said? Hassan responds, I think it's insane to place my values because of advocacy. Democrats who declared 18 months ago that we need our own Joe Rogan are now realizing that the Joe Rogan equivalent will say a lot of stupid stuff, says Frank Luntz. Of course, Frank Luntz is the right wing. Frank Luntz is a right-wing focus tester, like pollster. I'm all over the place. They can't fit you in the tent. Sorry, they're saving space for Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, they would never have Marjorie Taylor Greene on as well. Another component of this is that Dems don't get to the media figures that broke through on the right, Rogan, Vaughn, etc. Were not GOP apparatchiks. They were independent figures who, over time, were aligned more or less with the right of center politics and promote Republicans. But Dem operatives seem to see Rogan and Vaughn and Shapiro Kirk as the same type of figure and only want the latter, party men. They want control and just don't get it. Exactly. You do get the same insults as women law, low-key funny, but also I'm sorry. Yes, I'm the only male victim of objectification. Like it's a kind of a joke. It's kind of a meme, but it's also kind of not a meme. It's also always the same sweaty incels that hate like female content creators that also hate me as well. This is the last thing I was going to show. Worth noting, as third-way campaigns against Hassan Piker and moderate Dems join in, that they especially want to reduce far-left influencers in infrastructure, which of course barely exists. This is from their stated purpose. Reduce far-left influence and infrastructure. Build a moderate democratic infrastructure, including media, talent pipelines, and communication networks. Push back against far-left staffers and groups that exert a disproportionate influence on policy and messaging. Ban far-left candidate questionnaires and refuse to participate in forums that create ideological purity tests. Okay? Here are some of their thoughts on podcasts. Integrate and engage with the business community. Democrats need to stop demonizing wealth and corporations broadly. Engage with businesses, business podcasts like Earn Your Leisure that reach the aspiring class and entrepreneurs to discuss economic policies. Be pro-aspiration and pro-capitalism in a smart way. Recognize that working class voters value upward mobility and economic success. Have a prosperity gospel aimed at the working class. Call out corporate abuses individually instead of attacking corporations as a whole. Like, this is what the third way method is. The third way method was demonstrated in the last election cycle, right? It was what Kamala Harris's campaign turned into. And it is precisely why they lost. So just like AIPAC can't candidates on the issue of Israel directly and put Israel as like a salient point in the campaign, and they have to do this like weird engineering around it. Third Way has to do a similar thing. They want that. They want to change the communications, but most people are too smart to lean into that because they know they'll never win another election again. So they'll restructure, they'll attack people that are calling them out. They're calling out their influence in the party. They'll attack people that they've identified as like real threats to their institutional power that's going away. And that's it. And it's ironic because so many people do this for free. Like, these guys at least get paid handsomely, right? These guys get paid handsomely. They get rewarded to do this. And yet there are people who are doing it for free in my chat right now. There'll be people that come in here and be like, nah, dude, you're a cancer to the Dems. It's like, dude, what are you talking about? Do you want to defeat Republicans or not? You and I, if you say yes to that, you and I have the same attitude on this. You just have a different opinion as far as how to do it. Make an argument on why your methods are more successful. You might not be that big, but you are significant here as a litmus test for leftist politics, so you should recognize your newfound influence through that. I mean, I recognize it. I do. I think they're glazing me too much, though. Also, speaking of which, this was pretty crazy. And once again, donate to Abdul for Senate. Okay. Mallory McMorrow going on Jewish Insider and starting this next barrage of attacks has led to the right-wing fascist administration's chair of the DOJ task force to combat anti-Semitism to come out and demand, and mods have my donation link somewhere. Here it is. But yeah, Mallory McMorrow and Haley Stevens coming out and like doing this attack against Abdul El-Sayed has led to the right-wing fascist administration's chair of the DOJ task force to combat anti-Semitism to come out and demand that University of Michigan and Michigan State University shut down these two campaign rallies. Okay? Individuals should not score political brownie points by platforming anti-Semites. Jewish students should not be subject to the constant hate and intimidation on their own campuses. Where is the leadership at UMich and Michigan State University? Silence is unacceptable. Federal funding should go to institutions that prioritize education, not ideological agendas or tolerated hate. Okay? Unbelievable. Like, this guy at the Department of Justice is getting his notes from Stop Anti-Semitism, which is like one lady from Long Island. Okay? This is not a real serious institution. There's also the other side of this that I wanted to address one more time, because there is, like, we talked about, the right-wingers and their attitudes and things like that. But Adam Carlson wrote this effort post that I think he thought was very thoughtful. And I'm going to describe to you why it's actually not. Okay? So he had previously talked about how this is most likely not to win voters, but instead is to eat away at Stevens' donor base and present herself to AIPAC and AIPAC adjacent donors as like the reliable person to go to for the pro-Israel or at least Israel adjacent candidate against Abdul El-Sayed's anti-Israel approach, which was true. But then I guess he talked to some people from Michigan, and they told him that no, that's not the case, which is really dumb. And I'm going to explain to you why in a second. Okay, after some reflection and talking to people, including locals that are smarter than me, points 3 and 4 seem way too cynical and galaxy-brained. It's not. It's the truth, right? And it's probably not some strategic 4D chess to triangulate a middle path of denomination between El-Sayed and Stevens. I had completely forgotten that the West Bloomfield Temple Israel attack, where 140 preschoolers could have been blown up, was 2 weeks ago. This is unbelievably racist, okay? This is unbelievably racist. But because it's Islamophobic, even people who fancy themselves to be like progressive white guys don't see it, okay? Like tying me and Abdul El-Sayed to a thwarted synagogue attack is insane, dude. That is 2003 era Rush Limbaugh racism. Just because you're saying that and then positioning that as like Jewish fears around this sort of incident happening, if people like myself and Abdul are able to speak to college students, doesn't make it a reality. It's so, and I know for a fact Adam Carlson doesn't even realize what he's doing. Okay, and that for many, for whom that is still raw, even in the most very progressive Jewish community like that, Piker's presence nearly both are within about an hour. I would be raising the temperature, not lowering it. That is disgusting. Like, the shit that you can say
wanted to talk about
Henderson. We saw Muslim candidates and Muslim commentators is so unbelievable.
After a little bit of an adjustment
and the reason why,
can you tell us about that?
it's extra unbelievable that Adam Carlson is saying this because he was so pro Zoran, and Zoran ate these attacks over and over and over and over again. Okay, so he should have realized that this stuff is very cynical, and Zoran is out there every day trying to do his very best to just be like, here, I'm obviously not an anti-Semite, which should be clear to everyone, but I will go above and beyond to try to make people feel comfortable about my Muslimness, my brownness. Sorry, like he does that every day to a degree that I think, unironically, is counterproductive because it gives legitimacy to the hysterical fears, right? At a certain point, you have to say, look, man, I'm not an anti-Semite. I've spent all my, I've spent, you know, this entire campaign cycle advocating for Palestinians because of their humanity and never leaning into anti-Semitism. And you guys have been trying to whip up an anti-Semitic panic. But we have to realize at a certain point that it's because I'm brown, I'm Muslim, and I'm an anti-Zionist that, you know, there is a lot of hysteria, a lot of racist hysteria. So masquerading that as like legitimate Jewish fears is a very sinister way to do this. It's very racist, okay? That's precisely what was happening with Zoran, and that's what Adam Carlson is doing to me right here, where he thinks like, well, you know, these are really valid fears. Like, what are you talking about? Are they valid fears? Are they valid fears? They can be real fears, right? That can be a real fear. I'm sure there were plenty of people who legitimately thought Zoran